Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's most badass digital agency owners. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name is Chris Martinez, CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so that they can scale profitably. Today, I am joined by my friend, Steve Adams from Squid Pixels. What's up, Steve?
How you doing, brother?
Good to see you again, man.
You too, brother.
How are things you're in Georgia, right?
We are in Georgia, and everything here is excellent and improving, as I like to say.
Nice, nice. How's the weather? I always hear about actually, I experienced this one time. I was in Athens, not Athens, I'm sorry, Atlanta. And I experienced one of these crazy summertime storms where just the sky opens up out of nowhere. We don't have that in Southern California. As you know, because you're originally from Southern California.
That's right. That's right. Well, my wife and I used to live in Florida, right? And so when you live the Florida lifestyle, you know that on any given day it can rain. But then after it pours a little bit, the skies open up and it's sunny again. In Atlanta, it's usually either hot all day or it's raining all day. Like the weather patterns stay constant for one entire day.
Okay, cool.
So, but it's interesting because when you're in Florida, you have heat, but you feel the ocean breeze, right? Because you're in a tropical area, so you have the heat, the humidity. Here in Georgia, you get that same heat and humidity, but the reason they call it Hotlanta is because there's so much asphalt and so many buildings, and it's just when the heat comes down, it just bakes.
Yeah, it just stays in there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to tell everybody about Squid Pixels and your story. But as we start every show, we have a little kind of like roundtable discussion. And I'm really excited about this topic because everybody I know who's a business owner who came from this company just has amazing pedigree and like amazing salespeople. So you worked for the infamous Cutco Knives when you were younger and you became very successful. So let's talk about that experience. Like, tell me how you got started with Cutco.
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic no matter when the time it comes up. But with Cutco, I can still remember I was in high school and my dad was in the Army. And so he was serving a 2-year term in Korea. And so I had a job on a farm and I was literally riding my bicycle down, because I couldn't get a license because my dad wasn't home to teach me to drive. And he's like, "You're not driving until I come home." Yeah. So we're working on a farm picking produce.
Where's this at? What city is this in?
This is in Maryland.
Okay.
So outside of Baltimore, there's a military base up there. And so I'm picking on a farm from sunup to sundown all through high school. And then when I graduated, I got this letter in the mail. And the letter said, "Hey, you got good grades. You did good in school. Come work for us." And so my mom, I can still remember, I'm out in the yard with my dad and she comes outside and she's like, "I don't care." I think it said like $18 per appointment or something like that was the pay. And this is 2003, right? Okay. So this is way back. She's like, "I don't care if this is shoveling dog poo. This is what you're going to do." Well, my mom did not want me to do sales. She did not know that that's what was in that envelope. But I went to that interview in a shirt that was too big for me and a tie. And I think I still had braces at the time.
Nice.
And went in, and Andy Janti was the guy that owned the office. He was a branch manager at the time. And that's what that letter is what initiated my beginnings with Cutco. But that summer, I was the top number 3 sales rep for the summer in that office. And the guy that owned the office, Andy, became my best friend and one of my mentors for life. And on my way out of that office at the end of the summer, on my way to college, he handed me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and said, "Hey, I'm going to read this. You're going to read this. We're going to read it together." And I went to college and my parents said, "Hey, you got to stop this Cutco crap and you got to focus on school. You got to make the dean's list."
Yep.
Well, I didn't stop, right? But to them, I stopped. And so the funny part of the story is that they came down in October, November for Parents' Weekend. Now, I knew my parents wouldn't agree to let me keep selling Cutco unless a few things happened. 1, I made the dean's list. 2, I had actually went to school and got a job at the Burger King on campus because my parents believed that a regular job was the way to go. And so I had a job at Burger King for those 3 or 4 months leading up to Parents' Weekend. So they come down to Parents' Weekend, no knowledge that I'm still selling Cutco on the side. and actually training for a management leadership role in Cutco at the same time. And I'd take them on a tour of the campus and I say, hey, here's where my classes are. Here's my dorm. And by the way, I've been working at Burger King for the last 3 months to prove to you that I can work and make the dean's list. And my mom's face lit up. Oh my goodness, that's so awesome that you have a regular job. And just as fast as her eyes lit up, I said, and that was to prove it to you. So tomorrow I'm quitting there and I'm going back to Cutco. And man, was she pissed.
Oh my God. But dude, I mean, you were making money, right? Because I hear about how much money some of these, like I knew a guy who went through the Cutco program and he became one of the higher ups. God, maybe you even know his name, Brandon Venning. Dude, he said he was making like 400 grand a year at like 24, 25 years old.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I would say that's definitely the higher echelon, but the business, the Cutco business of becoming a career salesperson in that role has grown dramatically in the last 2 decades. But I mean, when I was in college that first summer, I think I made like 3 or 4 grand as an 18-year-old, which wasn't bad.
That's amazing.
What changed dramatically for me and what turned it into a real business was that the following spring break, I went to Miami because my branch manager, best friend, Andy, that's where he was from. He was just doing a summer office in Maryland, right? So it's all happenstance how we met. But I went down to Miami for spring break and I'm like, this place is amazing. Like I am in love with Miami. So when summertime came around, I'm like, well, I could go back home to Maryland and work on the farm or sell Cutco there because I already had an established client list. But my mentor was in Miami. So I went to Miami and that summer I totaled my truck the first week. You know, no great story starts without adversity. And they wanted to total it and I told them no and I fixed it. And him and I shared cars for a while, but we were both in his mom's house selling Cutco knives. Like everybody's laughing at us, like you're doing the knife thing. And dude, I sold $50,000 worth of Cutco that summer.
That's awesome.
And made 20 or 30 grand in commission.
Hell yeah.
I mean, as a 19-year-old first year of school, I was number 10 in the nation and won a scholarship that paid for all my books that year when I went back to school. So it was just insane.
I love that story. So really quick, what's the biggest sales tip that you learned from Cutco that you still apply on a daily basis?
Ooh, man, you are going to have some tough questions on here, huh?
Yeah, this is like Dateline.
I would say a couple of things. Like that summer, there was a few things I learned and I still, when I coach other salespeople, I still tell them things like this. Like for example, one of the things my mentor taught me when you're in a sales role is that you're going to have no-shows. You're going to have reschedules, you're going to have cancellations, but when that happens, just make 10 calls. Try and replace that piece of business that otherwise got lost because you had already allocated that time to work. So just make 10 calls, right? And then that's kind of like a tactical, like this is something you can do that sounds silly that you're probably gonna say, I've heard that before, but if you do it, and for me, it's like in my blood now because I did it so long, if you do it, it works. But kind of the magical piece is that if you do what you're supposed to do, magical things happen. And so this comes back to the discipline and the entrepreneurship and the contractor lifestyle, the freedom lifestyle of saying, and I remember it was in the middle of that summer, Andy was out doing appointments, right? And I'm at his mom's house in my bedroom and I'm making calls and he calls me or I call him and I'm complaining. I'm like, nobody's answering the phone. Nobody's saying yes. And I remember like tears welling up, like I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to cry. I was only at like 10 or 15 or $20,000 for the summer, like where I needed to be to win anything or to make the commissions I needed to make because my parents had run out of money. Yeah. So it was up to me to pay for school selling knives. Everybody thought it was ridiculous. Yeah. And Andy's like, you can do it. But in this moment, I'm like, I can't fucking do it. Like I'm about to quit. And he reminded me, he said, if you do what you're supposed to do, magical things happen. So stop your bitching, stop your crying, and just make 10 more calls, you know? Yep. And I can still remember I went and washed my face. I made those calls and I booked one appointment with, I believe her name was like Anita or something like that. And I went on that appointment. And when I got there, it was another moment of do what you're supposed to do and magical things will happen. Because when I got there, her husband wasn't there like he was supposed to be. And I did not end up making a sale. It was a no sale. So now I'm like really revved, you know, I'm like, man, I did what I was supposed to do. Nothing happened. But she did give me one referral. And that one referral was to a wonderful woman that became one of my top favorite clients of all time, who bought a complete set of knives, referred me to her sister who bought a complete set of knives, went back to her and sold her a whole set of cookware, went to her sister, sold her a whole set of cookware, went back to her and said it's a whole set of flatware, went back to her sister, sold a set of flatware, and then initiated myself into the world of selling business gifts because they owned a business together, and started selling logoed pocket knives and pieces that they were given to employees and clients. And that moment where I made those 10 extra calls, went on that appointment that turned into complete and utter crap, but resulted in a referral because I still gave my energy.
Yep.
That made my whole summer.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that story. You're making me want to go out and sell now.
Please
give me a phone. I'm going to start cold calling.
That's it, man. That's it. That's all you need is a little fire to get you past that moment. Because when you do what you're supposed to do, magical things happen.
Oh, that's great, man. All right. So now that we're all fired up on the sales talk, let's get into Squid Pixels, because you and I met last December at Design Pickle, had a conference.
Yep.
Which is ironic because in many ways you are a competitor of Design Pickle, but Russ, being the amazing guy that he is, just welcomes you with open arms. You know, there's enough business for everybody. So talk about Squid Pixels and what you guys do, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so Squid Pixels was actually born or birthed back in 2015. And at the time, I had a magazine business, a publishing business. We had 2 or 3 magazines that were small neighborhood magazines. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of like a license deal or a franchise deal with a larger organization. And so it had a very clear-cut model, but it was similar to Cutco in that I was really mainly a sales rep, mm-hmm. but I had these other roles of being the publisher and managing the business. But what was great about it was the reoccurring revenue, right? Mm-hmm. The ads that we sold in the publications had 1-year, 2-year, 3-year contracts, and we got paid monthly on the contracts as they got paid. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, my wife is a graduated animator, graduated designer, and she was a freelancer at the time. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was pushing work her way by being in the magazine business, but in her freelancer business, it would be up 1 month, $8,000 in revenue. Down, right the next month, $800, because it was all project-based, hourly-based billing. You know from your industry, right? This hourly project-based billing creates a huge flux in revenue. So over the course of the next couple of years, my wife, you know, she asked me a couple times, like, how can we make my business more like your business? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until early last year, we had our 3rd child. Our daughter was born, and my wife had a home birth. And it was an amazing experience to be there with her and through that entire 36-hour labor in our house. And what was even better about it was that after the baby was born, we got to stay there. And we took off work for 30 days. We said, once the baby's born, take the whole month off. And in that time frame, as I'm looking at my wife as my superhero because she just gave birth to this beautiful baby, mm-hmm. we start these conversations of, you know, what would life look like if your business was like my business? And we started looking at it and we said, okay, well, if we wanted it to be reoccurring, it's going to need to be a membership model. And so Squid Pixels was reborn last year in the spring when my daughter was born. And we said, you know what? If not only is it creating an inconsistency in revenue for us, but this is a bigger problem for business owners, for agency owners, for print shops and engraving shops, because the small business goes to the printer and lets the printer design their print materials.
Oh, yeah.
The small business goes to the social media manager and lets them design their social media posts. They go to the Facebook ads guy and let them design their Facebook ads. But what if they had an in-house-ish designer that could do everything for all these different platforms with one cohesive, professional, reliable source of design? And so we said, okay, if we're going to do that, we need to make sure it's priced accordingly. And so we said, we're going to do monthly memberships. That was number 1. Number 2, we said, we're not going to have any contracts, because I had been in the magazine world with contracts, and it's not fun when somebody's business changes and they no longer can adhere to the commitment they made. Yep. The world's changing too fast. So we said, no contracts. And then the next thing we said was, you know what, if we're going to do this, we want all of our designers to be based here in the United States. With me coming from a military family and that type of pride, and also from a communication standpoint. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, there's Fiverr. Anybody could go to Fiverr, but when you go to Fiverr, you have to search and scour and make sure that what you're communicating, they're understanding and they're delivering back to you, right? So we wanted to make sure we were efficient. And one of those pieces was we only hire US-based designers. And then we linked up with Russ from Design Pickle, mainly because he released a software, because he does $10 million a year in graphic design. And we wanted to start from a place that would allow us to scale. And his software that he developed to manage all of his designs, he released to a small beta group, and we got in that beta group. So we have access to a software that very few agencies have access to. It's not even open anymore. And so that software allows us to be really, really efficient. And so that membership model allows us to bring in clients that we can serve professionally and reliably for a long period of time. And it's just been a beautiful, beautiful pattern ever since that shift. And we feel like we're really making a difference for business owners, where our mission is to just take graphic design off the plate of a business owner, entrepreneur, and let them focus on revenue producing and relationship building activities, and not on Canva. They don't need to be on Canva.
Exactly. Actually, it's fairly similar to the value proposition that we talk about too, with the agency owners. Is you guys focus on the strategy, we work on all the implementation for the web dev, and we do design work as well. I guess so. We're kind of competitors too. This brings up my next question. Because Design Pickle is probably the biggest. I would say that they're arguably the biggest, and there's 100 people lookalikes. People who are trying to mimic Design Pickle. So we were talking about this last week, is how do you differentiate yourselves amidst this marketplace that is becoming more and more competitive?
It is. And I think Design Pickle was kind of first to market, kind of like Kleenex was, right? And they kind of broke that mold and said, unlimited graphic design. And there are precisely about 100 other companies that offer unlimited graphic design, because I did a lot of market research, and I know all 100 of them. Some of them are really small, and some of them are pretty big, actually. But we wanted to make sure that our offering was different than all of theirs, and so you don't see the unlimited aspect being touted in our world. We talk about being a graphic design support agency. We talk about being made here in the United States. It's not that we have anything against the fact that Design Pickle uses all, designers from the Philippines, or even in your agency where you have to.
Well, they also use Mexico too.
Right.
And Mexico, Monterrey.
Yeah. And I know that was a recent change, right? They added Mexico as a country.
Yep.
And even in your agency, you have Mexicans that are doing the designs. Yet for us, that was a way to differentiate ourselves and say, hey, from our perspective, if we use our designers that we hire here in the United States, that we're close to and that we manage, that we can get a higher quality piece of output, right? Just based on proximity of location. And that has been really, really huge for us. Again, the software that allows us to be efficient, our average turnaround time is next business day.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, that's really hard to beat for some folks. But the overall aspect of graphic design is just I think it's the way we talk about it, the way that we interact with the clients, the way that we help them, all of our clients. And this is something that you and I talked about when we were at the conference together. I said, hey, I'm not doing any more consulting anymore. I'm really focused. We're lasered in. We don't do website design. We don't do app design. We don't do video editing. We just focus on graphic design. But I used to do a lot of consulting and stuff. So I said, I'd love to offer some premium service where my clients coaching advice. And you said, well, why are you going to charge them for that? Just give it to them. And we do now. All of our clients have a special calendar link that has access to my personal calendar. They can book a half an hour time slot anytime. And we'll go through and look at their brand and see where we can help. We'll brainstorm ideas. One of them called me the other day and just said, hey, I'm struggling with this. And I just put a mirror in her face and said, you haven't been doing the work. And she's like, oh my goodness, you're right. And so I think transparency is another big one for us. Our pricing model is very transparent. You can either get a design a month, a design a week, or a design a day. Our designers are transparent. They're all here in the United States. They're all ours. our turnaround time is transparent. It's next business day, unless it's like a catalog or something that's obvious, right?
Right.
So there's very little miscommunication. And that, I think transparency would be the key word that I would use to answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been focusing on what I call like bridging the gap. And so with outsourcing, like if you look at it at its most raw form, we are an outsourcing company for web development here at Dude.
Yeah.
And when you do outsourcing, you find somebody on Upwork or Fiverr or something like that, and there's the email communication and you send off your stuff and you're just kind of sitting there waiting. You don't know what the progress is or the status. And then you kind of hope that it comes back okay. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. You never really feel like that person is a part of your team, at least in my experience. So what I say is similar to what you guys or what you're saying is that, we're trying to bridge the gap so that our team feels more of like an extension of your team. And that's why we do like weekly calls with our agencies, at least weekly calls, daily status updates. Like I'm sure a lot of the things that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
But it's really just building this deeper connection between the graphic designer or the web developer or whoever and the actual client, and making them feel like that person is just, in the other room. Yeah, that's been really, really helpful. So let me ask you a question. You brought up the thing about you only work with Americans. All of our staff here are in Mexico. How did you kind of come up with that spin? Is that something that you always wanted to do, or is that something that kind of came to you?
I would say that's two parts. One part is when my wife was a freelancer, we had other designers working with her, and the farther away they were, or we hired VAs, and the farther away they were, the harder we personally found it was to work with them. And so from that respect, it was just personal with us, the way that we like to work. All of our 6 out of our 7 designers actually live in the Atlanta area. So as we move into the fall, we're actually instituting a team night out, where we're going to get all our team members together and go bowling or go throw axes or whatever the hot thing is, right? And that sucks that our one designer in Arizona can't come join us for a little, monthly team night out. And so we've migrated to that world where we want to be able to reach out and touch you. We did an annual review with one of our team members recently and gave her a promotion, and she got to come here. And we got to sit with her for a couple hours and talk about the past year, the future year, where she wants to be. And that touch is good for us. And then, of course, the military background, national pride, all that stuff. But the other thing is literally a direct line delineation between us and Design Pickle. From day one that we created this model, we knew that Design Pickle existed. And we knew that they were the big bad wolf in the room. So what better way to differentiate than to say, hey, that's cool if you want to go to Design Pickle, they're a little bit cheaper. We're more expensive, but all of our designers are here in the United States, AKA our quality is going to be higher, right? So the ability to differentiate ourselves from Design Pickle without ever saying anything negative about Design Pickle.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. There's 2 things that you said that I really, really like. One is talking about how the proximity of the staff really does make a difference. I don't know if you've read this book, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek.
I've heard of it, but I
highly recommend it. I didn't read it. I listened to it. I still learned. But one of the things he talks about is how people in general, especially employees, are dying for a sense of community and connection with the companies. And that's something that like corporate America has really gotten away from, and why you see such a kind of an adversarial relationship between staff and management. And he brings up these stats that 90% of people will become disengaged with the company if they don't get any feedback about their performance. 40% of people will become disengaged with the company if you give them negative feedback. So people would rather have negative feedback than no feedback at all from a boss. And it just goes to show that, like being close to your team physically makes a huge difference. And I see it here all the time in Mexico, because, when we've had periods where the water will be out, right? And so everybody will have to work from home for like a week. And I just noticed a huge difference, right? When you don't have that collection of people together, everybody working towards a similar goal, there's just something that's lost. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a drop in productivity for our teams, because we measure all that stuff. It's just the culture seems to just kind of dampen a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how you could say it.
It
Like
is.
the
And I
energy
think
not there.
I would say the vibes, the energy, right?
Yeah.
You're going to, especially with creatives, whether
Yeah.
it's web dev or whether it's graphic design, you have creatives and they thrive in a space where they can communicate. And of course we have the team chat channels where they can share ideas and get things digitally, but bringing them together on a regular reoccurring basis where they can kind of get that recharge and touch another human that sees the same vision that the end for us as leaders, for us to have the ability to touch them and infuse our vision of the company with them and where we want to go and what we want to happen, because that's important. That the proximity.
Totally.
Sure.
The other thing that you said that I thought that was really cool is that, you know, like how you go with the, you know, everybody's here in the States. I love that you take that spin, because obviously we take the spin that, hey, we're here in Mexico. This is the hidden gem of web development.
Yeah.
So you can really, like, honestly, if you're an agency owner out there listening, you can take anything and spin it and make it part of your marketing message to attract the people that you want to work with. Like the people that come to us, they're like, I had no idea that Mexico was even an option. And I'm like, I know, that's like amazing. And then you take a completely different spin. It's like, we're taking all American designers and we're working for you. And they're like, oh my God, I had no idea that you could do that. You know, so it's.
And what's really interesting is two things. Like you said, there's the spin. You can put a spin on it. If you are in the Midwest, you could be like, hey, we're landlocked. And that's your spin. That's fine, you know?
100%.
But the other thing is that our designers being in the US matters to us. It doesn't necessarily have to matter to our clients. And here's what I mean by that. We have clients all over the world: Australia, Slovenia, Brazil, England, Norway, right? So they don't necessarily care that Germany, they don't care that our designers are in the US, but we care because of the proximity, the leadership, the vision, the communication. It makes our systems and processes better for them, regardless of their location. Right? Because we've had clients do designs in Slovenian, German, Spanish, Haitian Creole, right?
Wow.
All they got to do is give it to us in English. We lay it out properly, and then we copy and paste the translation into the design the way that it should look, right? So, so it doesn't, I always want to make sure it's clear that I have no problem with anybody else outsourcing work anywhere else.
Yeah, totally.
But for us, it works better for us to do it here. And I love that you guys are in Tijuana too, because you're like literally right over the border to have that US access, but to be able to give jobs to those folks in Mexico is awesome too. Because I grew up going to Mexico, right? My grandparents had a house in Baja, and we would go there frequently with the dune buggy and the beach and all that stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely appreciate it.
I think, you know, people are really just attracted to the fact that you have core values, or that we have core values. Maybe it's not totally in alignment with what they think, like what you were saying, but the fact that, you know, we have values and that they exist and that they're there and that we're promoting them.
Right.
Dude, it's actually surprising that there aren't a lot of other companies out there who take a stance like that, you know, that becomes part of who they are as a company.
Well, it does. I mean, I had a buddy that, you know, another business owner, actually a client of ours as well. And he's like, hey, I've got this great VA in the Philippines, and, you know, you should hire them to help with this issue that you're having. And I said, hey, I love that you're offering that up. I said, but how's it going to look if I say we're 100% made in the USA and my assistant's in the Philippines, right? Like there's a disconnect there. And so, excuse me, it's interesting that as a core value, it is a challenge to adhere to, because our payroll costs are way higher than some of the other agencies that we may compete with.
Right.
But we built the model that way. We built our financial models around that. We accept it and we embrace it and say, that's okay. This is part of who we are, and we're not going to change that. And we've had quite a few people that are clients that are military or military families. And I mean, they choose to pay us more money because of that core value.
That's awesome, man. I love it. So really quickly, we're running out of time, but you know, what are some things that people that can send over to you? Like, what are the most popular things that you're doing on the design side for your clients?
Excuse me. So one of the things I like to say is that we'll do anything that doesn't move. So if it's a logo, or excuse me, not a logo, if it's a website or a video or an email, all of those things move in some capacity or require coding. And so as a business, people ask us like, what's your niche? What's things like that? Look, if you're a business owner, you're going to have to promote your goods and services either digitally or in print materials. and any of those things we can do. Print materials we excel at. We had a magazine business for many years, so that one's kind of obvious, right? But in the digital space, you know, we know that Facebook and Instagram and all these platforms change their sizes all the time. And our business owners that are clients don't have to worry about size changes. If Facebook or Twitter changes the size, they just let us know, hey, I need a new profile photo for this platform. We'll figure out the new size. We'll get it done for you. But I would say social media graphics, social media managers, and even agencies that are promoting things and they don't have time to do their own social media management, we can bust out tons of social media graphics ahead of time so that they can plan out their social media. But I think the biggest key is if you're a business that is doing some printed materials, you're doing a fair or a show, you're putting things out on digital, you're doing email or web marketing, we can help create the elements and pieces and layouts to be consistent across the board. So one of the biggest things we've seen lately is kind of a request that we, what's the word? Not like we, not that we push it on the clients, but kind of that we initiate, is that when they come to us and they don't have branding guidelines, and we help them develop, we make that one of their first 2 or 3 requests. We say, hey, let's do your branding guidelines. Let's get your color codes in all different flavors. Let's get your fonts figured out, because they don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and we know that we may not be their only source. They may still get design from, I mean, if they go do their website with you guys or an agency that works with you guys. That's okay. But what if we already did the branding guidelines to hand to your team? How much more efficient does that make your process and the agency's process that hired you and the business owners? That is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Wow, that's great, man. All right. Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. We are out of time. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
The best way is squidpixels.com. Our company phone number, our company email are right there. We always like to say we have human support. So feel free to reach out. Let's have a call. And what I always say is just give us a try. There's no contract. There's no risk. Just give us a try and you'll see why we're growing by double digits and not churning very much at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. And who would be the perfect person to reach out to you today?
The perfect person to reach out to me today is that listener that says, hey, I really enjoy doing the things on Canva, or I really have like these 1 or 2 people on Fiverr, or my brother's sister's uncle knows how to use Photoshop, man. I just can't. Give me a call. Let's talk and let's see if we can get that time that you're spending there, reallocate it to a revenue producing or a relationship building activity. And I guarantee once you start, you won't go back.
Awesome. Thanks again, Steve, for being here. To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in today, and make sure you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, brother.